I think, that is sort of the fundamental goal of UX, right? Can we reduce the friction? So I think it is quite, profound when we can see the same user interface that a 6-year-old can intuitively interact with, the same thing that a 4 or 5-year-old can also interact with at the same time. So, to that point, and to your point, I think a good segue might be, sort of looking at sort of natural language processing and natural language understanding. What are the biggest challenges today that Microsoft is sort of tackling with chatbots? And where do you think that's going as far as progressing and speed? Because we're seeing things now all over the place. Other companies are popping up all the time. So we're definitely curious to see where Microsoft is going with that.
So one of the things I think that we're really interested in, and part of this is, like I said before, was a little bit of a surprise to us, is how quickly companies want, and you're seeing this too with some of your clients, like it's not just little toy bots, which we love toy bots too because they're fun, but they're people really trying to get work done in a different way. And with our companies they're looking at their digital transformation. So they're really worried, like, are we going to be disrupted? Like, how do we make sure that we have a really great business and that our customers want to interact with us? Because honestly, like the last thing you want to do is pick up the phone sometimes and call a company if you have a problem. Like it has to be pretty bad. Yeah. And that's not what a company should want. You should, as a customer, want to engage your company. Or like, if you're in school and you have to deal with some, bursar's office or something, you're just like, to like go there and deal with them. It's just not as easy as it should be. And I think we're learning that, people are so valuable, their time is so valuable, and these simple things are just not as easy as they should be. So I'm really interested in like helping people solve kind of these everyday problems that are very common, that we think can really help a company either outside or inside, just a large organization. Because it's kind of more interesting to see how people work in groups or talk to each other and interact with all the services that already exist. So can you not have to rebuild everything or feel bad that you didn't collect data and build things in the way that you should have? You kind of have a big mess out there. So how can you assemble these parts and, maybe build some new ones and just sort of language enable it and provide a new UI? And in some cases, that might be doing really complex language understanding and providing like really deep customer support with humans in the loop. In other cases, it might just be like bringing the cards and buttons that you have in your UI right to your chat canvas, or helping somebody fill out like a form really easily through dialogue. So we're finding that there's like these different types of interactions that people want to do when they're building an app. And we want to make it really easy to like take different types of parts and assemble them really easily. And probably also like we have Cortana, we have all of Bing, we have these big knowledge graphs for general purpose things that you want to be able to do. Can we make it really easy for you to say, I want to understand like maps and, locations and ways I talk about people and time. I don't want to have to build that. So if you have a general purpose way, like sign me up, just do that so I don't have to do it, and can kind of like checkbox parts that you want. Absolutely. So I think we'll see like a lot, kind of probably like you see with apps in general, like, you don't have to build your own buttons anymore. You kind of like do that automatically. But I think our goal is just to keep being really useful to the business customers. And, people like you're having businesses. So if you see things that we need, you should let us know, because, you probably see things that we wouldn't see, and maybe reaching an audience that we don't see. So that's why I'm so interested in talking to you. And I just think it's so cool that you have this group that you're doing.
Thank you. Absolutely. And so I guess, moving forward, as people are, using this technology more and more, are there any risks that they should be aware of, and until we get to that stage, where this can completely understand a human the same way that another person can?
Yeah, I think we're a ways off before they can understand like a human can understand. But I think one thing that you should think about is, your bot or your app is only as smart as what you understand and remember about a person and their interaction. And so otherwise, it's just as smart as that person that has met you for the first time says hi. And so if, every time I meet you guys, you don't remember the sentence that I just said, and you only remember like the sentence that I just said. And if I meet you again tomorrow, you're like, hello, who are you? At some point you're going to be like, even though you're really smart, like something seems wrong. So what we tell people is, even if you haven't collected information, just make sure that you know what you want to remember about a user interaction. And that way you'll be able to make your application get smarter over time, because if not, then it's going to be really difficult. And of course, in our case, we assume that the customer always owns their data. Like Microsoft does not own the customer data. We don't look at it, but we just want to make it easier for people to be able to, make their assistants and their bots smarter. And we know that requires analytics and things like that in order to say, oh, this is where people are dropping off, or these are the questions that people are asking that are unanswered. And then just be able to update that every day. Like shouldn't have to code to be able to update or add a new answer to a question. So how do we just make it easier for people? Because, that would be like saying the person who you need a developer to write your blog every day sitting there with you, right? Those developers, they sometimes, how developers are, they're not always around when, they're off onto the next hard problem, and you're like, wait a minute, this is a hard problem. Like we just had something happen today and we need the bot to be able to respond to it's Node today or, whatever. So we just think that this is actually great for people who also write and understand dialogue, who maybe have felt a little bit left out of some of the, software thing. It's actually about creating an engaging experience, and that requires content. And, it's been really interesting. Like sometimes things that are surprising or funny or just, they kind of matter in this thing. And so, it is hard to know, what is somebody going to find irritating? Like, oh, you're trying so hard to be funny versus it is just sort of funny. Right. And so sometimes just having the right level of ambiguity in dialogue, I think is is really, Rebecca just logged in, but I think you're done. Yeah. So I think just making sure that you remember that this is about dialogue, and it's good to test with your people using it. Are you trying to make them more engaged? Are you trying to help them get something done really quickly? What's your goal? Just like any other software. We have a lot of fun just kind of seeing what people say and how they interact, where they drop off, giving feedback. Was that was that helpful? Was that not helpful? People can just explicitly do that as well. So we have a lot to learn, I think, about what a good conversation experience is.
Awesome. So basically, staying real close to the data and really looking at that and what is the data telling you, and I feel that can really help bridge that gap, until the technology starts getting better and better, that we can really use it to its full potential by really learning what the data is telling us and how we can, better leverage these tools, essentially.
And I don't know, I mean, part of it, any good software, any good problem solving is how do you get there? How do you cheat a little bit, right? I mean, maybe you don't have to wait until, somebody develops this thing that can perfectly understand a human, right? So, I mean, there's great experiences today without that. A lot of great experiences are just something that someone created that's a really amazing piece of software. And so I think, that's where creation and just being innovative and just understanding what your users want, just so important. And I think that's like the web, right? So if you think of social networks, the people who first created it, they just did something unexpected, which was, and I had so many people say well, I don't really get it. People are just writing a sentence and they're sharing it. What is that good? You can write a lot more than a sentence. And I was well, it's just interesting because you have identity, right? You have a profile that isn't gonna hunt you down. It can be a little bit anonymous, but semi-anonymous, and people can find you. You have a directory, which is duh, it's not that hard, but it didn't really exist before. General lookup, there still isn't one for email. And then you could write a message and someone could read it and you could see who read it. I mean, that's not rocket science, but it actually completely revolutionized the way people talk. And today, I think a lot of our most intelligent systems are based on that built up over time because people used it. So I think just getting people to use your stuff is probably just a big ingredient. If you get somebody using your chat app, you should double down on it and just be aware, like you said, of the data and the usage.